welcome, Jade. We say Jade or Jade?
Jade.
Jade, okay. You have written your first novel, Chlorine. What are your influences, and could you introduce yourself to our visitors?
Yes. Hello, I'm Jade. I live in New York. Chlorine is my first novel. I do have a second one coming out in March next year, and then a short story collection coming out in 2027. My influences for this book, they were actually very French, so I was very excited to be invited to come to France for it. I really love Julia Ducournau's films, especially Raw and Titan. I don't know the French names, but they were a huge inspiration for this book. I think in French it's the French Extremity movies, but those kind of body horror movies were a big inspiration for it. And also books like The Vegetarian by Hong Kong. Just very much books that take a lot of the historical trauma that has happened to someone and they feel it in the body, and then that makes them lash out as a form of reclamation in their body.
Okay, and so Chlorine has been published in France this year. So what are your feelings when you have heard that it will be translated to French?
I was really excited. I studied French for 1 year in high school in America, and obviously I did not retain any of it, but my French teacher, we've stayed in touch, my friends, and with her, so she was really excited. So it was very exciting to be able to give her a copy of the book and just let her read it. So it was a lot of excitement about that.
And I don't know if you have discussed with Simon from Argyll, but I meet him in May, and he's just a fan of your book too.
Oh yes, he's very nice. We had dinner with the Argyll team yesterday, so yeah, he's really lovely. The whole team at Argyll is amazing.
It's about Ren Yu, a young swimmer who feels like a sirène. Who says sirène? Mm-hmm. Yes. So what do represent the sirène for you?
Represent. To me, the mermaid represents freedom, because the mermaid doesn't have to belong to any of the human pettiness. In the book, Ren really wants to escape from all of the horrible human things that have been done to her and that have been holding her back. So to her, the mermaid is this representation of freedom, because the mermaid can go out in the ocean, the mermaid can do whatever it wants, the mermaid can read whatever they want, the mermaid can eat whatever they want. They don't have to go to swim practice, they don't have to listen to a horrible swim coach. So for Ren in the book, the mermaid really represents this sort of being and this life that you can be whoever you want to be, and that's something she really craves.
We see that Ren must do like the sport ask, like as her family ask her to do, like his manager want to do, the world in a bigger picture. So do you want to say from Ren perspective that for women the world has not really changed with after the Me Too and this kind of stuff, and women are always under society white or this kind of stuff?
I think that's a complicated question. I think Ren doesn't view herself fully as a woman, because in the timeline of the book, she's still very much a girl, and she doesn't view herself as a girl. She also views herself as a mermaid. So I think she would argue that she doesn't really have the perspective of being a woman quite yet. And I do think that I think personally things haven't changed much. I do think like the dialogue around Me Too and the dialogue around just lessening the patriarchy is really important, and it definitely is more obvious. But I do think there are certain instances where the people in power do not necessarily actually do any actions to change this. For example, I adapted Chlorine to a screenplay, so we've been having a lot of producers read it. And some of the feedback we've gotten is that, like this could never happen in real life because like a coach like this would be immediately reported. And I think a comment like that and how often it came up just showed me that we don't quite fully understand how prevalent the patriarchy can be, because obviously things like this happen all the time and it still gets uncovered, and just the fact that people think it would never happen is part of the problem.
as a Ren father decide to go back to China because of its origin and so on, is it a question too for Ren to know what countries she belongs to, or there is no question about the origin about Ren?
I think Ren feels that a lot of belonging to a country is a very human facet that she just doesn't want to take part in because she's never felt at home in America, and she's in the book she's never been to China, so she doesn't really have that association with it. So I think for her, she doesn't really think in terms of country, she more thinks in terms of like land and water, because I think for her the country borders are very like human creation, and for her what more matters is like where she feels like she belongs, and that doesn't necessarily always have to be a country. For her, that's more the water. For her, that's wherever she can find the people or the mermaids that she feels most like is her community.
And she has a double change, one in his body, because she's at the time where she became from girl to woman, and in the same time there is this mindset that say, oh, I'm a mermaid. Does it mean that it's a way to prevent the change of its body, a way for her to fight against the nature?
I think so. I think that she is, in the beginning of the book, she is a girl, and then, you know, after she does get her period, like, she is technically considered a woman, but I don't think for her, just because you've started menstruating, that makes you a woman. I think she, in the book, finds that a very strange concept, and something that feels very much part of the male gaze, because for her, like, when she finds out that she's a woman, it's very much through her swim coach that she has this realization, and obviously the swim coach is a man, and this is a terrible man that sort of wields this power over her. So I don't think that she necessarily feels that, again, she is a woman. I think, again, she feels like she is a mermaid, and I think you can have the interpretation that her thinking that she is a mermaid is a way to cope with what's happening to her body, but I prefer to think of it as she really is a mermaid, and she really does think she is a mermaid because she is. I think that that is the joy of fiction, is that being able to imagine a different kind of self is possible for you.
And she likes to swim because she's a mermaid, and she. We are not sure that she has really choose the sports, and I feel that it's very violent the way she follows the training and this kind of stuff, and the competition and so on. Do you think there is still a taboo against the sport and the violence of families that choose for children and trainers and this kind of stuff?
I think so. I think swimming is probably one of the more or less violent sports because you're not necessarily putting your body in direct attack against an opponent. But I do think after being a competitive swimmer for 12 years, I do think there is a sort of violence associated with sports, whether it's the atmosphere that's in your team or just the violence that you're committing against your body. And that's not to say that I don't want to disclaim other people who find a lot of joy in sports. And I do think being a swimmer taught me a lot of good things like discipline, the joy of repetition, etc. But I do think for Ren, specifically in the book, there is a lot of violence associated with competitive swimming and the chlorine in the pool, which is where a lot of the competitive swimming happens. So that's why the book is named Chlorine. That's why she believes that she wants to escape the chlorinated pools for fresh water, which doesn't have that violence associated with competitive swimming.
And we are not we have not only horror violence within the books. There is love, but this love is quite forbidden, discreet. We don't see. We see it through 3 chapters with Cathy. Who is Cathy?
Who is Cathy?
Who is Cathy?
I wanted to introduce a character that was very, very human because Ren, she doesn't think of herself as human. She thinks of herself as a mermaid. And it felt like Ren was so obsessed with this goal of becoming a mermaid that she wasn't allowing her to think of these human emotions. And so I felt like rooting Cathy in this yearning and in this love would emphasize the monstrosity of Ren. So Kathy is very much the human embodiment of yearning, and I do feel like yearning is a big facet of the human condition. So I do think just providing that contrast with Ren was a really fun way to make Kathy come alive.
Miss some time that some people around us can help us? Is it the message that you wanted to show too? Or perhaps not?
No, I think the message I wanted was that people love differently, and that if you really love someone, you would accept who they are, because I think Kathy does have a little bit of conflict over whether she actually thinks Ren is a mermaid or not, and how she can actually help Ren when Ren doesn't necessarily want her help. I think more for me, the message was that if you really love someone, you would accept who they are rather than kind of try to change them, which I think Kathy does realize at the end, because she helps Ren get to the creek, and she helps Ren escape. But I actually did write Ren to be very aromantic, which is something that I felt was very important for her, because she doesn't view romantic love as the ultimate goal for her. She views as transcending herself to become a mermaid. So I think Kathy doesn't necessarily understand that, and so that creates a barrier between the two. So I don't think the message for me was more so that we miss sometimes that other people are trying to help us, but more so that if we love someone, we really have to accept who they are.
Why do you choose the body horror format to express your story?
Yeah, I feel like body horror was perfect for this kind of story, especially menstruation. I feel like is a big part of body horror. I mean, you are literally expelling like 2 to 3 tablespoons of blood out of your body every month. And I think very much that having a body itself is just horror, the horror genre in real life. So for me, like, this book was never in the genre of horror. To me, this book was always just me writing my experience down. So I guess I just wanted to write something that felt very realistic. And so for me, the body horror genre was so realistic that it's just how the book came to be.
Yes, it's the point that is more horrific on your book, is that the final is just so real described. So, and you have said earlier that you will have a second novel that is coming. Can we have information about the content you wanted to share?
The second book actually is not very much in the body horror area. It's not in horror at all, really. It's more literary fiction. I'm not sure in French what that genre would be called. But yeah, Chlorine came from a big place of anger, and I was a lot younger when I wrote it. So I don't think I had the kind of maturity to think about nuance and what else that the character might be what other characters might be experiencing, which I think was good for Chlorine, but I think in future works I wanted to explore more about the character set in a world and thinking about her place in the world rather than thinking about herself. So the second book comes a lot from love, and it comes a lot from my fear of death, not of my own, but of my loved ones. And it's very much just about a girl in New York who's trying to work through her fear of death while she works at a bespoke startup for celebrity urns.
And so, first novel, first invitation to Utopiales. How do you imagine? It's the first time I imagine you go in this kind of festival. Mm-hmm. No? Yes. What are your impressions regarding this festival?
Yeah, this is not my first literary festival, but it's my first science fiction and fantasy literary festival, and I think just the crowds and the passion and the interest that people show for not just the writers but for the movies, for the talks, for all of the art exhibitions is really exciting, and I don't think I've necessarily seen that sort of like excitement and passion in other festivals for all these different kinds of subjects. So this really is a lovely festival, and the organizers are amazing. They worked so hard, and so I'm really grateful to be here.
So thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the end of the festival.
Thank you for having me.